So the serpent is also found in the trees, where the sacred fruit which bears life and nourishment for all the animals is found. And this is why the snake could be perceived as the guardian of the fruit of life, the fruit which humankind evolved, developing knowledge and wisdom was from eating the fruits of the tree, the juicy fruits of Mother Nature, the fruits of life, which this planet is a garden where the fruit trees grew all around in tropical regions, very temperate, very moderate climate, where the fruit was abundant, and the fruit is the most dense, is the most nutrient dense and most nourishing food on the face of this planet. It's the simplest food to digest. It is the ideal food of humankind. And I have covered this extremely in depth in my articles because it's the simple sugars that are easily digestible, instant energy, passes right through us, cleanses the body, the most highly detoxifying food that we can put in our bodies. If you want to detox your body, eat fruit. It is the fruit of life. This is why the snake is found in the tree with the fruits and guarding the fruit of life. The fruits, the seed of knowledge and wisdom. When we look at the etymology of the word snake, we go to the ancient Hebraic roots for the word snake. The Edenic word is she-nake, pronunciation she-nake. In other words, she-nake, serpent goddess. It's a feminine word. The Chinese word she is snake, recalls nikush, meaning divination or magic. Snake magic is all about the creature's neurology, as I've already covered. Snake handling has long been associated with magic, from snake charmers in Bombay, India, to medicine men among the Native Americans. Modern medicine men still uses the symbol of the serpent and the pole, the Asclepius, the snake and the pole, just like Moses and his snake and his staff. In other words, his phallic pole, and his serpent, which the serpent represents the goddess. From ancient Greek, the Pythia, Python, which is why today we still find the serpent goddess dancing with her phallic pole. This pole represents the male, where the snake represents the goddess, the female. So the snake represents both the male and the female, the Kundalini serpents, the Ida and the Pingala, which wrap around the Sushumna, or in other words, the midline of the human body, the midline that falls directly between the bilateral symmetry of the human body. Snake is from Anglo-Saxon snaka, or esnaga. Snaga, Sanskrit meaning serpent, the Nagas. And in the spiritual teachings, we have the two Kundalini serpents which intertwine, the Ida and the Pingala, the male and the female energies, which intertwine up the body, which are red, the colors of red and blue, which the red and the blue, when they converge at the middle, makes the purple, which is the unification of red and blue. And the red and blue relating human anatomy is what we call the Venus system, or the Venus system, as in goddess system, as well as the arterial system, or the atrial system. So we have the Venus system and the arterial system, which is red, and the Venus system is blue. The arterial system relates to the color red, which relates to the god Mars. In other words, the male phallic energy, the sword. And the Venus system relates to the goddess Venus, which is the color green. In other words, the fertility, the springtime, the renewal, the rebirth. Because the Venus system is what the arterial system delivers the oxygen to the organs, through the blood. It's what delivers the oxygen to the cells. And the Venus system, it's what excretes the carbon dioxide out of the cells. The goddess Venus is born from the ocean, from the seashell, which the ocean obviously is blue, the sacre bleu. Veins which carry the blood once it's low on oxygen look bluish green, but that's because of the tissue that makes up the veins, and it's not due to the blood itself. It's due to the wavelength of light that we see when viewed through the skin. There's the term, although blue-blooded, which especially in previous eras used to refer to someone who was of royal or noble class, or noble bloodlines. So if your family was rich or notable, people may have said that you were of blue blood. In other words, this often relates to the term cold-blooded, as in these royal classes were often tyrants and often very sick people, very disgusting individuals, and so hence they lacked empathy. They were sociopaths, and so hence they lacked the emotional capacity of the mammalian complex of the brain in order to feel empathy. So in other words, they operate from the lowest portion of the brain, which is survival and dominance, which is the reptilian portion of the brain, hence the term cold-blooded or blue-blooded, as in cold, blue-blooded. Despite these things, nobody's blood has ever actually been blue. The red color of blood is because the cells contain tiny amounts of iron, heme iron, which is contained in a molecule called hemoglobin, which you may have heard of. Iron turns red when it combines with oxygen, or in other words, it oxidizes. Just like when a piece of metal rusts, it turns a reddish orange. It's also the color of Mars, which is the red planet, for exactly the same reason. The dirt on Mars contains a lot of iron, hence Iron Man, which is the color red, hence red Aries, bloody Mars, god of war. Some animals, though, use a different mechanism to transport oxygen. Instead of using iron, the element of Mars, they use copper, which is the alchemical element of Venus. Copper also binds to oxygen, so copper oxidizes a bluish green, and so animals that use copper to transport oxygen have blue blood. Most notably, arthropods, such as lobsters, arachnids as spiders, and snails, have blue blood. And if you notice the previous etymology that I just did on the etymology of snake, the root word of snake being sneg links to snail. And even the Lithuanian word snake means snail. Hence the link between snail and snake and the blue blood, cold-blooded. So that relates to the red and the blue Kundalini serpents, the male and the female energies in the human body, the arterial and the venous system. So all of this leads us directly into the anatomy of as above, so below the waist, so below the belt. The correspondence of the sexual organs to what is below the belt to what is above the belt. Again, the pineal gland is the only gland in the one of the only glands in the human body, and it's the only gland in the human head that is unpaired, or in other words, it's asymmetrical. It's azygous, meaning it falls at the direct midline of the bilateral symmetry of the human form. So the only other organs in the human body that fall directly at the direct midline of the human bilateral symmetry is first the pineal gland, then you have the thyroid gland, then you have the thymus gland, and the only other gland that falls directly at the midline of the shushumna, the third pillar of the human body, is the pineal gland, or the female clitoris, directly azygously, asymmetrically in the midline of the human body. And now I'm going to cover the direct connections between the pineal gland and the penile glands, female clitoris and the male glands. The glands means acorn in Latin, also used of acorn-shaped things, which is etymologically linked to gland, from Latin glandula, gland of the throat or tonsil, diminutive of glands, meaning acorn, nut, acorn-shaped ball, which I will be getting into here in just a moment in the presentation. Pay attention, notice the shape of these glands, the shape of the organs that I am showing you. Notice the small acorn shape. As I mentioned previously in the presentation, the shape of the omphalos stone, the pine cone or the acorn shape, the Fibonacci phi ratio golden spiral, the hypertrochoid pattern, because this aspect is key. And I'd figure we'll start at the top, basically at the top of the anatomy, to again link what I was describing, again the connection between the pineal gland and the penile glands, as we can obviously see the geometric similarity as well as the obvious symbolic similarity.
the same representation, as well as what we can see here at the base of the thalamus. You can see that is where the pineal gland is located, and at the base of the penile glands is where we find the penile frenulum, which in the female anatomy, right here at the base of the glands, of the frenulum of the glands, would be the clitoris. In the female anatomy, what would be called the frenulum clitoridis. And again, as I had just mentioned, how the pineal gland is one of the only azygous glands within the human body, again following the direct midline down the center of the human body, or the sushumna, the midline, the third pillar of the human body, in the direct center of the bilateral symmetry of the left and right halves of the body. So again, one of the only other glands that falls along that midline is, you go all the way down, you've got the thyroid, the thymus, and then in the male anatomy, it goes down to the penile glands, is the only other gland in the male body that falls at the direct midline of the human body, and that corresponds in the female to the clitoris and the uterus. And again, I mentioned previously in the video about the pineal gland and the brainstem, or the pons and the medulla, as well as the thalamus, corresponding to a snake, corresponding to the Uraeus serpent of ancient Egyptian symbolism. And again, the pineal gland being the parietal eye, the snake eye, the eye of the snake, the one-eyed, the all-seeing eye, the one-eyed snake, which again directly corresponds to the penile glands, as well as this looks exactly like the clitoris in the female anatomy. And again, at the frenulum is exactly where the female clitoris would be located.